What's going on, everyone? My name is Matt Jarbo. This is 3 Buck Theater. Today is the 13th of November, 2018. And man, I don't know about you, I'm still reeling from yesterday's announcement about Stan Lee. I've been watching lots of people's videos on it, been reading their comments on it. Marvel released a kind of a 4-minute retrospective of Stan Lee that I just saw popped up right before I started recording, and I decided not to watch it because I didn't want to like tear up while watching it, because it's one of those things where you think back upon everything this man has done, everything this man has accomplished over the years, and it's still just really sad, right? The whole thing is just terribly sad, but it is unfortunately the way that the world works. It gives and it takes away, and it took from us someone who will never be replaced, only remembered and immortalized. And that's something I think every creator out there truly wants. So yeah, there's definitely kind of a silver lining in looking back and reflecting upon what he did in his life and how much of a life he led, and something to strive for if you are a creative or just in general. But it doesn't take away the pain. You know what I mean? It doesn't take away the pain and sadness anymore. But thankfully, we have cool things to talk about today, as you can see here on the list on the screen. But the first things first I want to talk about, of course, is Godzilla vs. Kong, a movie that I don't know if anyone else out there like was really expecting. But before we jump into the plot details, I called this movie back in 2013. Right, I called this movie back in 2013 when Legendary Pictures was getting ready to move away. Oh no, sorry, I called it in 2014 when they were getting ready to move away from Warner Brothers to go to Universal. Right, they were looking to leave. They were looking to move on. One of the last big projects they had with Warner Brothers was Godzilla. Right, Gareth Edwards' Godzilla. And so it was like, okay, that's cool. That's going to be pretty cool. And then they moved to Universal, and it got me thinking, wait a minute, they're going to Universal. Universal's got Kong. Holy shit, Godzilla v Kong. That could be a thing, right? A lot, a new reimagining of that movie from way back in the day. Something fans would lose their damn mind over. And I called it back in 2014, and this was in May 2014 when Godzilla was coming out, right when Universal was getting ready to scoop up Legendary. By the way, that deal has kind of fallen through in its own right. And then at Comic-Con, we hear about Kong Skull Island coming from Legendary Universal. And then now we're hearing about Godzilla versus Kong coming out in 2020. And it's being directed by Adam Wingard, who we kind of know each other, which is really interesting to be like, oh my God, I know the guy. Like, we're Facebook friends. You know what I mean? Like, it's just so weird. But anyway, the plot synopsis for it has finally come out, and we could take a look here. So it says here that Godzilla versus Kong gets a synopsis beyond "Yo, they fight." And I think a lot of people out there are really hoping for maybe a meatier story. One of the biggest things with Godzilla that came out in 2014 was that the story was this Godzilla versus the other monsters. That was really about it. And it was like the humans trying to deal with it and survive and also do their part when they realized that Godzilla was actually the good guy. And I love the way the movie turned out. At first, I wasn't too impressed with it, to be honest with you. It wasn't until my second and third watching that I got what was going on, that I got the movie, and I was really excited to see what they were going to do with it for the future. And of course, Kong Skull Island came out, and we know that it's going to be coming together here in just about a year and a half. But there's a plot synopsis now. So it says here, in a time when monsters walk the earth, humanity's fight for its future sets Godzilla and Kong on a collision course that will see the two most powerful forces of nature on the planet collide in a spectacular battle for the ages. As Monarch embarks on a perilous mission into uncharted terrain and unearths clues to the Titan's origins, a human conspiracy threatens to wipe the creatures, both good and bad, from the face of the earth forever. So, obviously, and it says here, we need a human plot to drive things along, which I completely agree. That was kind of the big thing with the last movie, or with the first movie, was they needed the human element. The human element is what solidified and grounded the story, and it still needs that, right? It still needs that to keep going. Same with Godzilla, this new one coming out, King of Monsters. That one needs the human element in order to ground it and for us to see it for what it is. and to, I think, to really kind of deal with the story, or I should say to grasp the story, right? Like, we still need some sense of believability. Now, what I think is going to be interesting here is, at least this is my prediction, what we're going to find is that Godzilla and Kong are going to fight each other maybe twice, right? Maybe definitely once, maybe twice. And then on the third time, they're going to realize they got to team up to take on whatever bad thing is coming their way, whatever sets to wipe them out, whatever conspiracy is going to destroy them, and what's going to come down the pipeline and what they're going to need to team up on, which leads me to believe that like Mechagodzilla is going to be a thing, right? That they're going to need to team up to fight Mechagodzilla, or some kind of human creation, that vast conspiracy that's going to definitely push that agenda. Again, who knows? I could be wrong. Who knows what's going to happen in regards to this movie when it comes out in 2020. It all really depends, I think, on where exactly Godzilla King of Monsters goes. I mean, they're getting ready to start shooting this Godzilla versus Kong here pretty soon. They're going to have a pretty quick turnaround to get it out by 2020. So, you know, it's going to give them a solid year and a half to finish the movie. And I can really hope that it's good, because this is a cinematic universe that I'm not going to lie. I'm actually all over. I'm 100% on board with the cinematic universe, and the plot seems interesting, and it's definitely going to probably tie in a bit with global warming. It's going to tie in a lot with current events, especially after the fires in Los Angeles. I would assume that's going to become a very, very, very prominent plot line in many movies going forward, because this impacted the creatives in LA. I mean, it devastated Malibu, right? So you can tell that they're going to be out there going, let's talk about this, right? Like, people like Gerard Butler, who lost his home, is going to definitely join up in a movie that's going to talk a lot about, global warming. He had Geostorm, right? He was in Geostorm, and you know, and that was the thing. I liked Geostorm, by the way. It was so dumb, it was fun. But you know, they're going to take a serious approach to climate change now, and I think they're using these monster movies, as well as probably other superhero movies and other big tent poles, as a way to push that agenda. And you know what? I'm actually okay with it, provided it's not heavy-handed, provided it's not stupid, and provided it actually tells a good story. I don't know if this is going to be a good story. All I know is that I am curious to see what's going to happen with it, and we'll all go down that particular path together. Now, speaking of something that is also sad, this saddens me. This is sad. The ALF reboot is no longer happening. Now, this was a TV show that they were trying to get back off the ground. They were trying to really kind of do the fish out of water, or alien out of water routine for the modern day versus the 1980s. And unfortunately, it's toast. It says here, sorry everyone, ALF is dead. The reboot, that is, the actual ALF puppet, was never alive to begin with. That's true. Earlier this year, we learned that an ALF reboot would bring everyone's favorite cat-eating alien back to the boob tube, but apparently that idea has been nixed. Perhaps the powers that be had a meeting and realized that the Earth would still continue to turn, even if we didn't have an ALF reboot. Now, cynicism aside, Chris Evangelista, that's a lot of cynicism in there. Personally, I'm 100% on board with an ALF reboot because of the concept of what ALF was. Yes, the alien life form escapes the government, ends up with the family, right? Ends up with the Tanner family, and and it's all fish out of water. Don't eat the cat. What does this thing do? Blah blah blah. It was funny. It was one of the reasons why Third Rock from the Sun was as funny and endearing as it was. It was a whole family of ALFs trying to live amongst us. ALF was just trying to understand the world and not get caught by the government, right? While also moving in with a family that looks after him and loves him. It was a fun sitcom from back in the day. If they wanted to remake this and aim it towards today's society, that would be really funny. Now, they'd probably have to get somewhat political in certain regards. I mean, but, other than that, I think it would be perfectly fine to do. Now, it finishes here saying ALF may be back in POG form, but won't return to TV. This is what TV Line says. In a roundup of various TV news, the site states that the proposed reboot is probably dead, saying cats far and wide can breathe a sigh of relief. I'm hearing the proposed reboot is not moving forward at this time after failing to attract a suitor. Nobody wanted to make it, is basically what it means. Here's the thing. Netflix, right? Right now, they're banking on nostalgia, man. They're absolutely banking on nostalgia right now. They got Fuller House. That's going into its 4th season. It's popular. It's also kind of fun to watch as a guilty pleasure sort of thing. But give us ALF. Give us an edgier version of ALF. Bring it to Netflix. Bring it to Hulu. Bring it to Amazon. Maybe not Amazon. Amazon doesn't want sitcoms. Amazon wants Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, Wheel of Time. That's what they want, and that's what they're going to get. So I would argue that in general, that's a thing. That's you know, bring it to that. Netflix, make it, right? Make it, bring it in. But then again, Netflix wants to create content that they own the rights to, not that they're licensing the rights to. And that's one of the reasons why Netflix is up in the air right now and a lot of other things. So unfortunately, ALF for right now is probably dead. And that's unfortunate. But at the same time, as much as I naysay, you know, like reboots and remakes, and even though I'm kind of in support of this one, I would rather there be new original content than going back to the well. I just grew up watching ALF, and if they were going to bring it back, I would think that it'd probably be pretty good if the right team was behind it. But then again, we've also been waiting how long for Amazon's Galaxy Quest show. So, you know, these things take time, and maybe somebody will look at this picture of ALF here from Melmac and go, yeah, we want to do that. We want to make this a reality. Maybe Comedy Central. Maybe. Who knows? I don't know. This is the problem with these kind of shows. If you can't find a home, and it's getting harder, I feel like, in this day and age, to find a home. Had ALF been proposed like 2-3 years ago, it probably would have been picked up by Netflix or something. But probably not right now, and that's unfortunate. But I will say this. If the producers of the show were to come out and like put like a GoFundMe trying to raise enough money to kind of shoot the pilot, that I might kick down on. And the reason why is because, well, I want to see it. I'm not going to lie. Okay. So here's what we got right here. We have ourselves the official synopsis for Detective Pikachu. If you happened to see yesterday's trailer review, you might be like me and go, oh my God, that actually looks remarkably good. That actually looks remarkably okay. That looks fun. I did a trailer breakdown yesterday, which I realized I mixed up a couple of the Pokemon, which I have been reminded I made that mistake. But I watched a trailer like 3-4 times before doing that video. And then my girlfriend got home and I showed her the trailer because I'm like, this looks good. This looks like a lot of fun. I really want to do this. I really want to see this movie, but I still like want to know what the whole synopsis is. And then, of course, they've given us the plot synopsis here, saying that the story begins when ace detective Harry Goodman goes mysteriously missing, prompting his 21-year-old son Tim to find out what happened. Aiding in the investigation is Harry's former Pokemon partner, Detective Pikachu, a hilariously wisecracking, adorable super sleuth who is a puzzlement even to himself. Finding that they are uniquely equipped to communicate with one another, Tim and Pikachu join forces on a thrilling adventure to unravel the tangled mystery. Chasing clues together through the neon-lit streets of Rhyme City, a sprawling neo-metropolis where humans and Pokemon live side by side in a hyper-realistic live-action world, they encounter a diverse cast of Pokemon characters and uncover a shocking plot that could destroy this peaceful coexistence and threaten the whole Pokemon universe. That's the plot line of the movie. It is directed by Rob Letterman. I don't know what he's done. And co-written by Nicole Perlman. And you know what? It's got Ken Watanabe in it as Harry Goodman's like other friend from the police station, and I'm cool with that one. So the ace detective goes missing. His Pokemon was Detective Pikachu. Now, why is it that Harry Goodman and Tim Goodman can talk to Pikachu? Is that going to be some kind of device that Harry had that allowed him to talk to him, or is it just going to be the fact that it's like a blood thing, right? Like think parcel tongue from Harry Potter is kind of what I'm thinking that it is. Only a few people are able to actually do it. Right. And Harry kind of just had it given to him. And this could be like the same thing at Tim. Oh, it's passed down from father to son. Or when he was younger, his father taught him how to speak to Pokemon. He just forgot all about it or something. Or I don't know. They're gonna explain it away in some, and I'm hoping not a dumb way, but definitely in a way that should be interesting, but it's going to set the story up. And it seems like it's going to be just a standard father goes missing, son and former detective, or this time, this is Pokemon. Okay, well, no, hold on. There's a line in the trailer though that makes me think when they're interrogating Mr. Mime, and Tim goes like, "We're not cops. right? Now it makes me wonder if they were cops, because it does make it feel like Harry Goodman was in fact a cop, right? That he was in fact a detective. Now it doesn't say he's a private detective, right? But just a detective. And Ken Watanabe looks like he's on the force. You know, so it's one of those things where it's like, if he was a cop, then that would mean that Detective Pikachu would be a cop. That is, unless they wouldn't deputize Pikachu to work with Harry Goodman. Again, you know what? There's going to be like logistics involved in this particular scenario that I'm just going to have to suspend my disbelief on. Right? Talking Pokemon, Detective Pokemon, Ryan Reynolds kind of voicing Deadpool through Pikachu, which, you know what, surprisingly works for me, to be honest with you. It surprisingly works for me. So I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. We'll have to wait and see what's going on. Again, the movie looks fantastic. I personally cannot wait to see it when it opens, I think right around May. It opens not long after Avengers 4, which I don't understand why. I have a feeling they're going to move their release date. It makes sense. As we learned last year, Avengers, you don't want to mess with that. You need to give it a wide spread of a few weeks. So either Avengers is going to move itself to the end of April, like Infinity War did, or it's going to hold firm to its release date and force this movie to change its release date. We'll have to kind of wait and see, because Pikachu is a Warner Brothers Legendary release. It's not a Fox, you know, Marvel movie that's going to kind of be part of the same family, you know, competing with itself sort of thing. So we're going to have to wait and see. Either way, looks interesting, sounds interesting. Trailer was great, and I can't wait to see what this movie brings us, because I think it's just going to be wonderfully, wonderfully awesome. Now, speaking of, I want to go as far as to say pretty cool news. We finally got the information on who's going to be leading Jon Favreau's The Mandalorian. And this is going to be Narco star Pedro Pascal, who apparently at this point, it's not 100% confirmed, but Variety was reporting that Pedro Pascal is officially set to lead The Mandalorian, confirming the Making Star Wars scoop from last month. Oh, okay, so I guess they are confirming it. Details remain mostly under wraps, but Pascal will play a lone gunfighter on the outer reaches of the galaxy, far from the authority of the New Republic. He'll also wear some sweet Boba Fett-esque armor, and that's pretty much where it stands, is that they're currently in production on this show right now. I thought they were already shooting the show at this point. So, because they kind of showed some behind the scenes photos, and you know they're gearing up to shoot it. Dave Filoni's directing the pilot episode. I think Bryce Dallas Howard's directing an episode. Taika Waititi's directing an episode. I mean, they're bringing in some big talent for this show. They're spending roughly $10 million an episode as the reports go. 10 episodes, so $100 million budget. We're talking feature-length budget for a 10-episode series. And Disney is not messing around when it comes to bringing this kind of Star Wars content to TV. So it basically, at this point, shows you that that they know what they're doing, right? Now, there's a section here where it says, executive producer Jon Favreau has a strong eye for casting, and Pedro Pascal is the exact kind of actor you can see him gravitating towards. Although he's worked steadily in film and television for over a decade, the Chilean-born Pascal truly broke out with his work as Oberyn Martell, the memorable and memorably doomed Red Viper, who comes to Red Keep on a mission of vengeance in season 4 of Game of Thrones. And then Oberyn Martell was a fantastic character, right? When he died in the way he died, which was truly shocking, right? I'm sorry, spoilers, but we're like 4 years past that at this point, almost 3 years past it. It was like, wow, because he was a good character. You know what I mean? Like, he was a great guy, so much charisma, so much just passion he brought to the part. And I liked him in Kingsman, The Golden Circle as well. I thought he was good as the villain in that one. And I haven't seen Narcos, but I've heard it's quite good. And I definitely still need to see The Equalizer 2, because that one is just one that's on my list that I haven't gotten to yet. But he's a solid actor, very charismatic, can do drama. So it makes me wonder what kind of character the Mandalorian is. Now, if he's a lone gunfighter on the outer reaches of space, far from the authority of the New Republic, it kind of leads me to believe that it's, again, the Outer Rim, and it's going to be dealing with the fallout of the effect of the Empire, remnants of the Empire, as well as the New Republic. And I kind of talked about this before when I did my original video on it. What I feel is going to happen is you're going to kind of have him in the center, right? The center of both. I think the New Republic is going to send an envoy out to where he's at, and they're going to try to establish command, and they're going to need to hire people, probably to help maybe move a few things around, right? And then you're going to have the Empire, or the remnants of the Empire, that are going to be there, and they're going to need a little bit of help to keep it under control, to keep the New Republic away from them while they get ready to try to like mount their assault or something. And again, I'm purely speculating here, but my theory is it's going to play out like the movie Last Man Standing with Bruce Willis, where you have the two warring factions in town. You have the lone gunfighter who's for hire, and he's going to work for whoever pays the most money, and ultimately end up playing them against each other. And I think that's going to be a big part of it. He's not going to be necessarily the hero. He's going to be more of the anti-hero that will be populated by a lot of hopefully other good characters. Carl Weathers, they just announced, is going to be in the show. We don't know who his character is yet, but it's Carl freaking Weathers. I don't think anyone cares. They're happy that he's in it. So I'm assuming that over the course of the next couple of weeks, we're going to start getting a lot more casting details, a lot more production details, maybe some synopsis details that will allow us to really kind of flesh out the idea of The Mandalorian and what exactly Jon Favreau is doing. Considering that he is, doing the Lion King movie and he's doing this, I mean, he is everywhere. And I'm really hoping that this show does better than Revolution on NBC, which is what he was an exec producer of from a couple of years ago. That was that kind of what they called part of the Amberverse, kind of a not so much steampunk, but just, alternative future sort of thing. And that one he directed the pilot episode of, and it had, I think, 3 seasons, and then it crashed and burned, but it never really took off. I don't think that's going to happen here, considering he's got like Star Wars to play around in. And they're just going to look at him as being like, look, you did Iron Man 1, Iron Man 2, that launched the MCU 10 years ago. You did The Jungle Book, that was a $1 billion movie. You're doing Lion King, that's going to be another $1 billion movie. They're going to give him the toys to play with and hopefully the freedom. And if he gets the freedom, I think it's going to be great. Now, here's what I'm hoping. At some point in time, he casts his friend Vince Vaughn in a role, because I think it'd be great to see Vince Vaughn alongside Pedro Pascal. I think the two would bounce off each other quite well. And yeah, that's kind of what I want. That's my thing. Plus, he likes to cast his friends. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. But I'm very excited to see what's going to happen with The Mandalorian. I think this is good casting. And if they do anything of what I previously speculated on, I think we as fans are going to be in for a grand time. Speaking of not necessarily a grand time, Simon Pegg is very much vocalizing his disdain, kind of, for the new Star Wars films. And he says here that they're missing George Lucas. Now, there are people out there that would vehemently disagree with that, right? Those are called the Last Jedi fans that are like, no, it's so much better now without Lucas. That's essentially what they're going to be like. But he's not wrong. As much as I like The Force Awakens, and as much as there are parts of The Last Jedi that I did enjoy, and I loved Solo, there is an element that's missing, and that element is George Lucas. Now, there's a YouTuber by the name of Razorfist who reviewed The Force Awakens back in 2015, and he broke down the prequels in that review that gave me a whole new appreciation for them, a new lens to look at them through, about how Lucas was trying something different and how Disney is just recreating more of the same. And I think, looking at even The Last Jedi, how it did pull a lot of thematic elements from not only Empire, but Return of the Jedi itself. It's kind of falling in that trap. And Simon Pegg, I think, is caught on that as well. Now, it says here that the Hot Fuzz star came to an epiphany about how he felt about Lucas and the worldwide hit, saying, I must admit, watching the last Star Wars film, The Last Jedi, the overriding feeling I got when it came out was, I miss George Lucas, which is a subtle way of saying this movie sucked, right? For all the complaining that I'd done about him in the prequels, there was something amazing about his imagination. Think about that for a second, right? Think about that for a second. Simon Pegg is criticizing The Last Jedi, saying like, I miss Lucas. I miss Lucas. His imagination was amazing in the prequels. In the prequels, he's going to basically say that they were better than he remembers because the imagination was there. Whether or not you like the dialogue or the acting, you have to admit there's a lot more imagination in those movies, right? Yes, it was kind of filling in the gaps we've already known about this particular story because they are prequels, but him imagining the fall of the Republic and the birth of the Empire and everything else, it was very interesting. And it was full of more imagination than I would argue The Last Jedi was, right? And even The Force Awakens, as much as I like it, it was not that imaginative. And I really think that like this is just a nice subtle kind of FU to that movie. Now, Pegg, who has come to regret his very vocal Jar Jar hate, has been cast in a plethora of films by J.J. Abrams. And we wonder how the director would react to his friend's closing comments on George Lucas' absence from the sequel trilogy, saying here, I do feel like his voice is missing from the current ones. And as Jar Jar might say, Misa oucha. Now, he goes on to talk about, in this article, Simon Pegg kind of retells a meeting with George Lucas a while back where Lucas and him are talking, and he thought Lucas was going to like hate him or think he was a fanboy or whatever. But when he heard that he did Shaun of the Dead, his demeanor changed. And this is kind of how it works out. Like when you make a movie and it's an impactful film, or you do something that's impactful, people who come up to you and always kind of tell you that it's impactful, you kind of like, you wait for it, you brace for impact kind of. But when it's another fellow creative or person in your industry, and you realize that, it's like guard comes down, like, oh, cool, I don't have, okay, like, awesome. Like this, it's talk shop sort of thing. And that's true. I mean, YouTubers do it all the time. But in this story, he says, Lucas gave him a piece of advice saying, you don't want to be making the same movie today that you'll be making 30 years from now. Right. And talking about the constant evolution, the constant changing. And that makes sense. That's what he's referring to. He's like, you're referring to the prequels as something that's not a constant, referring to the prequels as something that's different, that's ultimately different, that's ultimately changed. And I think that is probably one of the better ways to approach this particular, what Simon Pegg is saying. It's a way to, I think it's a way to gauge how Lucas himself views the new films, probably viewed The Last Jedi, was like, you don't want to make the same movie. This is different, but it's still whatever, you know, and it does make sense what Simon Pegg is saying. He watched The Last Jedi and he went, oof, I miss Lucas. And amongst a lot of The Last Jedi critics, those who did not immediately write it to the sunset, like they're trying to escape freaking Canto Bight, people out there thought the same thing. This is missing something. It's missing that certain je ne sais quoi. And I think it's Lucas. It is. He doesn't have to direct the movies. He doesn't even have to really produce the movies. But I still think keeping him on board to get an idea for what he wants is, or where he might be thinking, it could help. Now, I'm not saying every idea is great. Where he wanted the new movies to go with the midichlorians and everything else, like, no, I'm okay with that not being a thing. But there's other elements outside of the midichlorians that were only in Phantom Menace, that were, you know, that we saw in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, that I think tied into what he was trying to do. And yes, he made Phantom Menace for his kids, but he took a bit darker of approach for the next two films, and fans responded kindly to that, especially Revenge of the Sith. It's regarded as the best one of the prequels. You know, and so I think ultimately that experimentation, that changing, is what fans want more than just some of the same, which is what we kind of got with The Force Awakens, and we got with The Last Jedi. Yeah, they were kind of different in their own right, but at the same time, thematically, they still felt similar. Now, and I'm hoping that episode 9 does not go down this path. I'm hoping episode 9 is nowhere near what I'm thinking on this one, but it could be. It entirely could be. I have no idea. If it does pull another kind of, we're just going to remake Return of the Jedi, but with this new cast, then I think even I'm going to check out of Star Wars, because I don't want that. I do want something new, but I also want it handled with care. And that's my complaint with The Last Jedi, is yes, it was something new, but it wasn't handled with care. There was an ego behind it, right? There was Rian Johnson's ego behind The Last Jedi showed all the way through. J.J. Abrams doesn't necessarily have an ego in regards to The Force Awakens or this new one, I think. He wants to play in that playground still, but he's just afraid of breaking the mold. And you can walk that fine line, and I hope we get that here, but I think even Lucas understood that. And I think Pegg misses it, because as a writer and as a creative, he understands it. And I'm hoping that, you know, he's told that to J.J. Abrams, and J.J. has taken that to heart. I think Chris Terrio on board is going to be different than Lawrence Kasdan, and I think that's going to be in a good way. So that's kind of how I view that. But ultimately, I'm glad to see people in Hollywood coming out and saying, no, we miss George Lucas, because I do. I won't deny it. I won't hide from it. I won't run from it. I do. I miss George Lucas. Anyway, so this is a new thing. We're going to end out the show with this. Just to let you guys know. I created a voicemail line for $3 Theater. I just did it today before recording, so there's nothing to play today. But if you guys want to call in and you have any comments or questions about what we've talked about today, or you wanna ask me my thoughts or my theories on something, you can do that. Obviously, there's going to probably be some troll comments here coming through, but those will be screened ahead of time, and it's just going to be the ones that are insightful and the ones that actually care about movies and want to do that. We'll have those conversations. So you can do that by calling 818-350-3281. That is 818-350-3281. And you can call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Just leave a message and I'll get it and I'll listen to it. And if it's good, we will respond to it here on the show. And look for that probably a couple times a week, depending on how popular it gets. Anyway, I just wanted to end it with that one. So anyway, that wraps up today's episode of $3 Theater. My name is, of course, Matt Jarbo. Thank you guys so much for paying attention, for hanging out with me. Be sure to leave your comments. Be sure to thumbs up the video. Be sure to let me know what you think about all of this stuff. This is kind of a big episode today. A lot to talk about. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have yourself a great day, and peace out.